Good morning everyone, my name is Michelle, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another video. It's Thursday morning and I've got a lot to discuss. I'm going to get straight into this one. I'm not even going to talk about the weather, which is quite mild today. Anyway, so the Idaho 4 murders. Yesterday I put out a video about the frat boy theory. And I talked about the 4chan posts that were made a while ago now. And I've had a lot of comments about it. I've had a lot of comments from people saying, yeah, it makes sense. The frat boy theory is my number one theory as well. But I've also had quite a few comments saying, what about the sororities? What about the possibility that the killer was a woman? What about the possibility that the killer was a man, but was put up to it by a woman? And that's interesting. I'm going to talk about that. So I'm going to go kind of back to the beginning and talk about the information that came out in November when we were only a couple of weeks into the case. And it was discussed in the media what sororities the murdered girls were in, Kaylee, Maddie and Xana. So I'm going to talk about that first, and then I'm going to address some of the comments that were made on my last video. So this article was published in Fox 13, Seattle. Idaho murders, victim sororities on probation for health and safety violations. The two sororities to which 3 of the slain University of Idaho students belong to are on disciplinary probation, according to community accountability records. Kaylee was a member of Alpha Phi, while Xana and Maddie were members of Pi Beta Phi. Of the 10 sororities recognised by the University of Idaho, Alpha Phi and Pi Beta Phi are the only 2 listed on probation for health and safety reasons, which refers to violations or concern regarding risk management, alcohol or drugs, or hazing. Now, that's very serious. Hazing, for those of you who don't know, is a ritual, usually as part of an initiation into a group, or a fraternity or a sorority. In this instance, that involves risk, pain or harm, typically as part of an initiation into a group. College hazing often entails excessive alcohol consumption and ritualised pain endurance. Over half of college students involved in sports or clubs have experienced hazing. So, the beginning of this case, a lot of people, I remember, said, was this some form of hazing ritual? Was someone put up to this as part of an initiation into a fraternity or a sorority? And I cannot discount that that was something that happened. However, that's pretty extreme. Hazing involving ritualistic pain, making someone drink an excessive amount of alcohol, putting them up to something that involves pain, I don't know what that might entail. But making someone go out and commit a quadruple murder is pretty extreme, even when you think about some of the extremities that can happen in a hazing situation. So although I'm not discounting it completely as possible, I don't think it's probable. But let's continue with this article. In addition to being on probation with the university, Alpha Phi is also on a restorative plan with the national organisation. Pi Beta Phi is in good standing with the sorority's headquarters. So it was the sorority that Kaylee was a member of, which is having a problem at national level, whereas Xana's and Maddie's wasn't. It was just the particular chapter at the University of Idaho that was having the issues. The University of Idaho chapter is a national organisation for Alpha Phi and Pi Beta Phi did not immediately respond to questions. The University of Idaho also did not immediately respond to a request for comment. However, on Tuesday, a spokesperson for Pi Beta Phi's headquarters told Fox News Digital that Maddie and Xana were close friends of our members at the Idaho Alpha chapter at the University of Idaho. They were, and their families, along with the entire Vandal community, are in the thoughts of Pi Beta Phi members across North America. The email statements reads, Pi Beta Phi's focus is on supporting our chapter members at the University of Idaho through this tragedy. So they didn't address, they sent a tribute, they sent their sympathies, but they didn't address, at least not reported in this article, they didn't address the actual problems, did they? But then we know that Xana was at the Sigma Chi Frat house, the fraternity that Ethan, her boyfriend, was a member of. Hours before the murders. Now, there's lots of talk, and the vast majority of people who've talked theoretically about what might have been the motive for these murders, that Ethan, a visitor of the house, was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was collateral damage, so to speak, that they weren't targeting him because that wasn't his residence. He was just there staying the night with Xana. You know, they'd been to the Sigma Chi frat party, but then they decided to go back to Xana's to sleep. And apparently they got home about 1:45. There was a lot of confusion, and the police, back in the beginning of December, said that they needed to find out exactly what went on at the Sigma Chi frat party. And it was believed that Xana and Ethan were there between 8 and 9. And then there was this confusion about where did they go after 9 to 1:45. But it's now believed that they were there for the whole time. So they got there between 8 and 9, but they stayed until 1:45. It's something like a 2-minute walk back home. So they'd have left just before 1:45 a.m. on November 13th. Now, these 4chan posts say that there was a fight and there'd been problems between Ethan and some of the members of that fraternity since last year. So it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. It had been thought about for a while. You know, taking Ethan out had been thought about for a while. And it's pretty extreme. If you've got a problem with somebody, it's pretty extreme to want to murder them anyway. But yet, of course it happens. And the people who are named in this 4chan string of posts said that Xana was also a problem to these guys, as was Maddie. They hated them. One of them actually wanted Xana, so it was unrequited lust, I guess. But Maddie, they didn't get on. So Ethan spending the night at Xana's was a good opportunity to take them both out. And then Maddie, you know, also hated, was a secondary target. They might as well kill her while they were there. And it's Kaylee that was the collateral damage. Now, it could well be that these 4chan posts are, they're very detailed, but it could be somebody with a good imagination, right? It could be somebody who's trying to get these guys that are named in these posts into trouble. But that still doesn't discount the possibility that this is a problem that is embedded within the fraternity and sorority systems, organisations, groups. You know, they are secretive societies. They are going to close ranks and protect their own members. So I understand when people say, well, maybe the university itself is covering up for these fraternities or sororities, and I get that, and I've had some comments about that over the last 24 hours, and I can't discount that either. But the members themselves, I'm focusing on the members, the student members, are going to close ranks, not necessarily the organisation, although they didn't address the problems within their organisations when Fox News contacted them. But let's get back to this article. Sigma Chi is listed as in good standing with both the University of Idaho as well as the national headquarters. So then it goes on to talk about Ethan and Xana going home from the Sigma Chi frat party. So they returned about 1:45. While they were at the Sigma Chi house, Maddie and Kaylee went to the Corner Club from roughly 10 p.m. to 1:40 a.m. on November 13th. Now, we have seen that still that was taken from a surveillance camera that is 1:32 a.m. You can see Maddie with her coat on, and it must have been they were just leaving. For them to make it to the grub truck and then go home via a private driver, an Uber, or I don't know, a sorority driver, whoever that cabbie was, and get home at 1:56. That's tight timing. Some people have said that maybe the clock on the surveillance camera was wrong. It was an hour out because a week before the clocks had gone back. Yeah, I guess. But there is time. There is time. If they left at 1:32, if that camera was kind of the last shot of them saying goodbye, potentially to Jack D, was the guy that they were talking to, Jack D. If it was, there doesn't seem to be any problems. You can see him smiling. There seems to be no problems. I think you see Hoodie Guy to the right. That looks like Hoodie Guy to me. You see somebody that people have thought was a cop, but isn't. It's the bar owner. I think there's a mistaken identity there. And then I think that's Adam in the corner. And Adam has come under some scrutiny because of the surveillance video that you see of them walking from the corner club to the grub truck. You see Kaylee saying, Maddie, what did you say to Adam? And then you hear Maddie saying, I told Adam everything. Now, that has set the internet on fire. And you see Hoodie Guy walking with them, and Hoodie Guy says something right at the beginning of that exchange. And it sounds to me like he says, ditch the guys, but I don't know. I don't know. You can hear different things in that phrase. I really don't know what he says. I've tried to clean up the audio in the little clip that I put on, but it's the background noise, and it's so far away from the camera, I can't hear what he says with any reliability. If they left the corner club at 1:32, it's 10 to 11 minutes walk, apparently, from the corner club to the grub truck, so they'd have got there at 1:42, 1:43. They're there about 10 minutes, waiting for their food, thereabouts. So they must have left about 1:52, 1:53, 1:54 even, and then it's only a couple of minutes drive to the house from the grub truck in a car. So 1:56 sounds about right. So it's possible, that little timeline there is possible. So whatever happened during that night, most people have focused on Hoodie Guy, Jack D, what Kaylee and Maddie were doing. I think people are only now starting to come round to the possibility. I know there's a lot of people still think Jack S and still think Jack D. I don't, personally. Personally speaking, I don't. They're one of the few people who law enforcement have said they're not interested in. Now, no one's cleared as such. They could go back to them in the future, but they're the few people. So we've got the surviving roommates, Dylan and Bethany, and anybody who was there with them during the morning where they made the 911 call, but we don't know exactly who was there, so it's not really helpful. The guy at the grub truck, so Hoodie Guy, the guy that Maddie and Kaylee were calling, so that's Jack D, Kaylee's ex. We've also got the university professor who's been spoken about as they're not interested in, not considered a suspect. But what the police haven't done, and I talked about this yesterday, was clear, and I say clear in inverted commas, that they're not interested in, they don't consider persons of interest. Anybody from the frat house, anybody from the sororities, they've not spoken about them at all. So, in my opinion, I still think that they're looking into what happened at that Sigma Chi frat party. But hopefully, what they're also looking at is that wider set of relationships between the sororities that the murdered students were in. So, in this Fox News article, the fact that the sororities were paying tribute to the murdered victims, obviously that's nice, but it doesn't address the issue. Is it possible that somebody in the sororities hated Kaylee, Maddie and Xana so much that they would murder them? Is it possible that this killer was a woman? Well, I've said in my own profile that I did early on in this case, I think the offender is male. And that's for a number of reasons. Statistically speaking, 90% of murders are committed by men. But that still leaves a 10% chance that this murder, this particular quadruple murder, was committed by a woman. It would have to be somebody physically strong and physically fit. Doesn't exclude a woman being physically strong and physically fit. But generally speaking, men are stronger than women. But does that matter? Not necessarily, because this woman, if this killer was a woman, it could be somebody who is physically strong and physically fit and able to carry out a murder. But they'd have to have the skill, they'd have to have the stomach for it. Is it possible that a woman would have that stomach for it? Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. But statistically speaking, it's more likely to be a man. I'm not completely discounting the possibility that the killer was a woman. I just think it's much more probable that it wasn't and it was a man. But is it possible, as some of my commenters have said, and let me address a few of these comments here that I've got. I'm not going to put these on screen, I'm just going to read some of these out. But there's some interesting comments. So I've got one here. The theory that Maddie and Xana were the targets was the first thing that actually clicked for me. Why all 4 people died? Each girl had someone in their rooms. The girls left their sorority. So it has been said that Xana and Maddie left their sorority, which I'm not sure has been confirmed officially by anybody, but it has been talked about. And if that's possible, then that might have pissed some people off, I guess. Sorority girls could easily get frat boys involved. So, yeah, there could be some communication between people who don't like Xana and Maddie from their sorority because they left, who know some people from the Sigma Chi house. Yeah, absolutely. A combination of sorority and fraternity had issues with both Ethan and Xana and Maddie. I believe they're both involved somehow. I think this person could be right. But then this person goes on to say, but the ex or a stranger also possible in my mind, as well as the bully theory. Now, the bully theory or the mean girl theory, I have talked about that in a live. I'm not going to explore it in any depth because there's so many unknowns. So this is apparently somebody that Maddie knew or was a roommate of Maddie at one point, took her own life. This is the story. Took her own life because she was being bullied by Maddie. Now, there's no confirmation. It's too messy for me to go down that road. But a mean girl theory in general, I'm happy to talk about. Girls are mean. Girls are mean just like boys are mean. If a group of girls dislike these victims and got together with some of the frat boys who had a problem with Ethan, could it be that several people planned this? Yes, it is possible. But the more people you get involved, the more chance that at some point somebody talks. The more chance there's going to be someone slips up. So I don't know whether at this stage I'm going to say that a large number of people knew about it. But there could have just been 2 or 3 people. There could have been more people who hated these girls and Ethan, but only a small number of them, 2 or 3, actually got together and became so extreme in their thinking, so radical in their thinking, that they decided to plan a murder. And then another person says, I agree with you. You have to ask yourself why the 2 sorority girls spared and the 3 girls that were murdered just left their sororities. Well, we don't know exactly that they did, but that's what's been discussed. There is a bigger story here, and that party they attended and the 2 girls who were spared are the key. Dylan's room is on the 2nd floor with Xana's room. Now, I know there's been some talk about Dylan's room being on the 2nd floor. Now, it's my understanding that Dylan and Bethany both slept on the 1st floor. It's only YouTubers looking at pictures who were saying that Dylan slept on the 2nd floor. I personally don't think she did. I personally believe she was on the 1st floor with Bethany in a different room. I personally am not convinced by people saying that Dylan slept on the second floor, but some people are thinking that, so it's out there. But personally, I don't think that the information is convincing enough. This person goes on to discuss the roommates and the fact that Dylan knows more than what we're being told. I don't actually believe that, because I'm going with what the police have said. You know, the things that the police have said, I think we have to listen to and develop theories that don't go too far away from what the police have said, if that makes any sense. That if they have reason to believe that the two surviving roommates are cleared, or cleared as much as they can be, as well as Jack D, Hoodie Guy, and the other people who were there on the morning when the 911 call was made, I have to believe that they've done their due diligence and that they have cleared these people, know where they were sleeping, and know that that second floor room was empty. It would be obvious if someone was sleeping in that second floor room. So, no, I actually don't believe it. I don't believe that the two surviving roommates were involved. Unless the police come forward and say something different, change their story, and then yeah, I'll entertain it. So I think if there's sorority girls involved, it's not related to the surviving roommates. That's just my opinion. Somebody else says the fact that the guys mentioned in the 4chan post deleted their social media is a big red flag. It's very suspicious. I agree with that, absolutely. Some people are saying that they think the white Elantra appears to be a red herring. Again, I don't know. That I think the police have information that we don't. I'm going to carry on saying that the Elantra is important until the police say otherwise. But if the murders were committed by people from the frat house, and it was done in 19 minutes, as the 4chan post says, then where does the Elantra fit in? Was the Elantra a getaway car that took these guys away to get rid of their clothes, get rid of all the evidence? Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's what it was. That they didn't turn up to the murders in the Elantra, but the Elantra picked them up and then took them somewhere, which would mean that there's obviously more than one person involved. There's a lot there, isn't there? You know, there is a rabbit hole, I think. This is a quadruple murder. And the police have to go down rabbit holes, look at the connections, look at the associations between each of the victims and their own social circles, and then look at the connections between all four of them. What mutual connections were there? It's really, really complex. So when people say that this case is going cold or the police have got nothing, the case is not going cold. The case is not going cold at all at this moment in time. But I think the police are struggling putting things together and making things stick. I think they have potential suspects in mind at this stage, but they're at the theory stage, they're at the data gathering stage to support their theories, rather than building a case against one particular person. Because I think if they had one particular person in mind, they might actually name that person as a person of interest, in my opinion. But given that they're keeping things very, very close to their vest at this moment in time, leads me to believe that they're still analysing data. They'll have DNA and things like that. DNA samples will have come back by now. Forensics will have come back by now. They've got the autopsy results by now. Don't know if the toxicology's back, but I don't think the toxicology is directly relevant in this case anyway. But they might have a number of people who are persons of interest, possibly including some of the frat boys, some of the sorority girls even. But they're gathering data, putting meat on the bones of the theories that they've developed. So I think there's a long way to go in this case, in my opinion. Could the case be cracked very quickly? Yes. It could be that a tip comes in that is that final puzzle piece that they need. So I'll appeal to everybody. If there is information that you're holding back, even if it's something that you think is inconsequential, send that in anyway. Let the police decide whether it's important or not. Anyway, guys, there's a lot there. There's a lot there, a lot to digest. But let me know what you think in the comments below. I've been Michelle. Hope you're well. I'll see you in the next video. It's goodbye from Miss Tillington and Miss Cassie Springer. Bye, guys. Come on.